Hello, welcome to MMA Fan Cast, first video for YouTube. Basically it's just me. I'm a fan of MMA, and the idea behind this channel and the soon to be website will be for fans to contribute, to share their opinions. Let's put it like this: I've been a UFC and MMA fan for, I don't know, as long as I can remember. It's overtaken football/soccer as my favourite sport. So MMA is the first thing I think about when it comes to sport. It's the thing that I check. I'm constantly searching the net, looking on the popular sites, Mania, Bloody Elbow, Junkie, MMA Fighting, of course. Constantly keeping up with the UFC, occasionally with Bellator, stuff like that, but I would say that I'm more of a UFC fanboy. But this is MMA Fan Cast, and the idea behind it is for me possibly to reach out to other fans and get involved, maybe have some videos where we're communicating, you know, you at home as an MMA fan talking to me as a fan, just discussing events, previews, analysis, because the one thing that pisses me off is that I have no friends that like the UFC, not in person. So I have got a few friends, not many granted, but I do have friends online that like UFC, but none that I can really ever feel that I could have a full-blown conversation with, you know, talking about different moves, upcoming fights, things that have happened in fights, you know, previews, stuff like that. There's a few people that are on the McGregor bandwagon, and especially over this weekend on Facebook, seeing a few of my old friends that are posting this, staying up to watch McGregor fight and posting videos and shit, but deep down I know that they've probably just, I don't know, they've seen a promo somewhere, heard something that McGregor said they liked, and now they're a McGregor fan rather than an MMA fan. So that's the idea, is to try and reach out, find people who like MMA. We can talk, we are fans and we have a voice and we should talk, and who knows if they will listen, I don't know. But I just wanted to run over the weekend that we've just had, and it's perfect timing for the first fan cast. Well, it's perfect for me anyway. Thursday night, Friday morning, here, we had Rose Namajunas versus Paige Van Zandt, which was... Did it go the way that I expected? It pretty much did, although I thought Paige would be able to close the distance more. So I'm getting straight into talk here. Sorry, I've just gone from like intro into the main event. But for me, I thought Paige would be able to pressure her more, press more, get her up against the cage and do more. But Rose, striking, kept her at distance. And then when she did go in, she just seemed to be stronger than Paige, and I don't know what it was. And you've got to give respect to Paige for the heart that she showed during the fight. I think there was 2 armbar attempts, there was the rear naked choke earlier on, and then obviously it finished with one. But that girl has heart. I was going to say she has balls, but that would have been detrimental. Yeah, respect to Paige. Also, massive kudos to Rose. And I think, so I've been reading, as a fan, that the potential matchup with Tisha Torres after she won the night after. So that would be an interesting fight. And then obviously up to fight Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who is apparently, so I've heard, being linked with a fight against Claudia Gadelha, who, I'll be honest, I've never really paid much attention to her. I've seen Joanna's fights, obviously, since she came in and has done what she's done. But yeah, interesting. It sets that division up nice. There's a few decent little fights in there. Paige will be back. Paige is young, so is Rose, but Paige is young and she will be back. But I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and when he had Demetrius Johnson on, and Demetrius was pretty much adamant that Paige Van Zandt would be the person eventually that will topple Jędrzejczyk. Obviously that's not going to happen right now, but I mean, it still might be the case because her striking's just on another level. And I expect that Demetrius was thinking that it was the pressure. It was the pressure that was going to that she would be able to put on Joanna, which would lead to that victory. I'm just quickly looking down at the results from that Thursday evening, the Michael Chiesa versus Jim Miller. I didn't really find that very entertaining. I used to like Jim Miller. I think he's on the decline. I think that's fair to say. Chiesa, I've never really been a great fan. I don't know. I respect the jiu-jitsu game and the wrestling, but I don't know, he just doesn't seem to have it. I don't think he'll make the step up to whatever competition he needs to be. When I think of him, and I think maybe facing off against someone like, well, you think of the top 5 lightweights, Tony Ferguson would steamroll him. I think Pettis he'd be able to keep distance and do the job. You know what I mean? Dos Anjos, Cerrone. I just can't see Chiesa breaking that top. I don't know. I don't even know where he is in the rankings, but I don't like him too much. Sorry. Sage Northcutt versus Cody Pfister. I think that's how you say it. Now, this fight I thought was interesting because I thought, while I was watching it, I seen Sage get hit, and my immediate thought was he did not like getting hit then. He sort of, I don't know whether he turned his back on the shot or whatever it was. I'm not very technical when it comes to describing this stuff, but for me, I thought Sage did not like getting hit, and I cannot see him going on to the massive things that perhaps the UFC are hoping for. I'm not sure what their thoughts are with him and his potential. Yes, he looks the part, you know, and he's fought the way that he should, I guess, but he didn't like getting hit, and when he moves up into the upper echelons of the lightweight division, he's going to get hit. I don't hold out much hope for him. I reckon perhaps another 2 fights he will perhaps win. Then he'll get, I don't know, top 15, top 10 ranked opponent. Ended. I'm just looking down the card. I didn't really, because this was on Fight Pass, the Thursday night event. I don't even know what it was freaking called. What was it? Oh, it was just a fight night. So, for me, I didn't enjoy it as much as I have enjoyed cards in the past, but when you think that it was the first of 3, it's fair to say that it was a decent fight night. The other thing, quickly, Aljamain Sterling I thought was good. I loved his dancing after it, and that kid has got potential. Okay, so moving on to the tough finale. Tough 22, Team McGregor versus Team Faber. Interesting night, and although I was still, really hyped for the McGregor 194 card, this was nice because obviously I'm here in the UK and I don't tend to stay up to watch these fights live, otherwise I will be a zombie the day after. So I usually get up the following morning and watch it. It's the first thing that I do. So on Saturday morning, I woke up, I put on the Tough 22 finale. I put on the Tough 22 finale, watched the undercard first, and I'm just looking now, was there anything that really stood out? The only thing that really stood out for me was how shit the Gonzaga fight was. It was terrible. I think the first round, maybe 3 punches attempted. I don't even know if they landed. It was drab, boring crap. And you expect, like the UFC put these, it was sort of the main preliminary, the main event. Although they were both on Fox Sports, one the main card and the prelim. But it's like the UFC put that main prelim as one of their, I don't know, it's almost an enticer to get people to stay tuned and watch the main card. Unfortunately, people probably did switch off for that. I'm just looking through. Was there any surprises? I think Jason Knight getting defeated, but it was a decision, although it was a completely one-sided 30-27, unanimous. Evan Dunham beating Joe Lozon. That, for me, it could have gone either way. I like Joe Lozon, but that's because he's always in the wars. And the one fight that always sticks with me as an MMA fan is the Jim Miller fight, when he got busted open and he had that fucking great cut. That was a bloody mess. But Evan Dunham did well. But like, his last fight, he beat Ross Pearson, so I weren't overly fantastic with that, because obviously Pearson's English. He's a Brit. And I wanted him to win, and he didn't. And he got completely dominated by Evan Dunham. But we knew that was going to happen, the wrestling. He did that. But that's old news, so we don't really give a fuck. Moving on. Tony Ferguson versus Barbosa. This was cool. This was a good fight, and I enjoyed it. And Barbosa looks so dangerous, man. And listening to the commentary, I don't even know if it was Joe Rogan. I can't even remember if it was Rogan or Stan commentating on the finale. I can't remember. But just knowing the Barbosa kicks and how quick and powerful they come. No, I was actually listening to a Joe Rogan podcast where he was saying the speed in which Barbosa kicks is beyond anything within the realms of anybody else. You know, there's a few fast kickers, but Barbosa, no wind up, just bang straight. But Ferguson, he delivered once again. Ferguson excites me. He's dangerous. And which I will get to, when I think of Conor McGregor moving up to the lightweight, he's one of the people in there that I think to myself, that is dangerous. Tony Ferguson is the real deal, in my opinion. I've seen an interview with him with, I think it was at Helwani, and I'm not sure if it was pre-fight, before his Barbosa fight, I think it was, and he was saying, you know, bring McGregor, tell that bitch to come up to 155. It's dangerous. I didn't really like the way Ferguson showed himself in that interview. It just didn't, I don't know. I've not really watched too many interviews with him in, but he looks a hell of a lot like Max Holloway, man, without the glasses. Don't know. Maybe it's a genetic thing. Moving on to the finale itself, Ryan Hall, Artem Lobov, the Russian Hammer. Again, shame. Ryan Hall, I think pretty much I was expecting it to go that way, although it shouldn't really have been him in the friggin' finale. It obviously should have been Sal, which would have been good, but he screwed up with his visa or something like that. I don't know, it sounds a bit in depth, but it also appears that he won't be going back to the UFC, which is a shame because I think he had potential. But then Ryan Hall defeating Artem, it was a shame. I wanted to see Artem land another KO, but then to be fair, he was lucky to even get back in the house in the first place, because he obviously lost that first fight to get into the house. So although he did great things in coming back, knocking out 3 opponents on the bounce, neither of them really deserved to be in the finale. Weird. And then it turns out that one that actually wins it is one that got defeated, you know, actually whilst in the house. It's messed up. Moving on, main event. Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendes. Who saw that going like that? As a fan, this was a very, very interesting fight. I thought, pretty much like everybody else probably did, that Chad was the one with the power. Frankie would stick and move, in and out, land strikes, get out, maybe a bit of wrestling, but I thought they'd counteract each other. Frankie uses those takedowns where he sort of rushes in, puts his hand behind the leg, and then tries to push, and I like that, and it works, but I could never see that working against Mendes, but I thought Mendes might double leg. But then Frankie's wrestling defence is pretty much awesome as well. So I do like Frankie Edgar, and I have done for a long, long time. But now they set up a potential matchup with McGregor. Who'd you pick? I don't friggin' know. It's going to be interesting. But for me, Frankie Edgar is the real deal. And since moving down to 145, he's been pretty much, you know, legit, apart from his fight with Aldo, which was a close fight anyway. You know, he didn't get dominated in there. It's all interesting, and it really sets up that featherweight. You know, there's a few matches to make now. Now Aldo's coming off a loss as well. I don't think he should get an instant rematch, but it'll be nice to see what they do with Aldo. It'll be nice to see what they do with Mendes. Ricardo Lamas has just beaten Diego Sanchez. there's new matchups to make in there. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. So this is it. UFC 194 on the 12th of the 12th, 2015. And I have been waiting for this matchup for a long time. Obviously the main event I'm talking about. But we'll start off a bit further down the card and we will look at... I'm just looking at the list now. The first one that really sticks out for me is Faber. Uriah Faber versus Frankie Saenz. I expected Frankie to actually get the finish in this, and I'll be honest, I don't really know much about Frankie Saenz, to be honest. I haven't really followed his wherever he's been, but I have followed Faber, and I've seen what he's done, and hearing him in the post-fight press conference talking about potentially fighting Dominic Cruz or TJ, the winner of their fight, I don't think he warrants that title shot. Although there's not many people in the realms of the top of that bantamweight division. For me, I don't know. Faber needs something more. I don't think he warranted a title shot. But then when you think, how is the UFC going to play it? Is it going to be based on numbers or is it going to be based on merit? It's usually based on numbers, if we're 100% honest. So I would pretty much think that if TJ beats Cruz, I reckon Faber will fight TJ. If Cruz wins, I wouldn't be surprised if they go somewhere else with it and maybe still do the Faber-Dillashaw matchup. That would perhaps be the best possible outcome for the UFC. If Cruz wins the title, it frees up Dillashaw, Faber and Dillashaw can have that, and then whoever wins out of Faber and Dillashaw will get the next crack at Cruz, who may or may not in the meantime have fought somebody else. But then we've got, obviously TJ would be fighting Cruz after losing, or we've got Faber would be fighting Cruz and they're one-on-one. It's interesting either way, but I think that's the way that matchup should go. So on to the main card of 194, Max Holloway versus Jeremy Stephens. I wasn't overly excited about this. I suppose it was a decent matchup on paper, but it just didn't seem to deliver for me. I thought Max Holloway was a bit under par for what we're used to seeing him. I don't know if he's on a 5 or 6 fight win streak, and I know he's breaking into that title talk now, but to say after the match, after the fight with Stephens, that he wanted a title shot off that, it was never going to happen. It just wasn't enough. I think if he'd have gone out and destroyed Stephens with that pressure that we've seen him fight with, maybe, you see, it gets me thinking whether we go from this stage, and it's a lot of the mental game with a lot of these fighters, is they break into the top 5, 6, and then it becomes more a case of not wanting to lose rather than to win. So when they're down, I don't know, say 15 up to 6 in the rankings, 15 up to 8 or whatever it is, their ambition is to finish fights, it's to look impressive, to break into the top 5. When they do, it becomes more a case of, shit, I don't want to lose now because I'm almost there. And whether that mind game, that mental thing plays into it, I don't know. But that's what it felt like for me. It felt like Holloway was more concerned about losing than he was... Does that make sense? He wasn't concerned about winning, obviously. He would rather not lose than win. No, that doesn't make fucking sense either. I don't know. I know what I'm talking about. He looked like he was too scared to lose to me. He had too much to lose. The next fight, Damian Maia versus Gunny Nelson. I don't think anybody really thought that was going to go any other way. Maia is just on another level. And as much as I like Nelson, I've always thought he must be one of the coolest fighters on the roster. The way he just holds himself, never shows any emotion. He's just cold, goes in, does the job. And when he knocked out Brandon Thatch, or he dropped him, and then he finished him, that was impressive for me. But against Maia, it's a whole new level. And I think, as far as I'm aware, Gunnar Nelson asked for the Damian Maia fight. Maia keeps fighting these lower ranked fighters, and you know, he needs to... I heard on the MMA Hour which I enjoy and listen to every week, as a fan, I heard that Ariel's idea would be to fight Woodley next, which would be a great fight, because would Woodley's wrestling and striking keep Maia at enough distance for that to play out, or would Maia be able to close the gap? How would his wrestling fare against his? It'd be an interesting bout. But yeah, Maia wins. The next one, Yoel Romero versus Jacare. I thought Romero would win this. I thought that he would finish him. Obviously, we know that the longer the fight goes on, Romero becomes gassed. And Rogan was talking about it in the commentary, how fucking big he is. It's hard to maintain that sort of level of fitness when you're carrying that much muscle. So we knew that Romero was going to fade. We didn't know that Jacare would be able to recover as well as he did after that first round demolition. It was that spinning back fist, and I actually paused it, rewinded, and watched it a couple of times because it was sweet. Love it when something like that comes off, man. But yeah, Romero gets the victory, and it was probably perhaps the most controversial decision of the night. Although there wasn't a lot of controversy, which was nice, the decisions that we did see went the way that we kind of expected, I guess. This was the only one that could have really gone either way. A lot of people said Jacare deserved it, but for me, after seeing what Romero did in the first round, it was enough to sway the balance, sort of thing. I feel that if that was a fight and it would have continued, Romero would have kept on pounding Jacare's head into the ground, and that's the way I kind of see it. Although you must mention that the fucking cage grabbing was a bitch, and he should perhaps have had a point taken off him. There was a lot of talk about this on the MMA Hour. I don't know, but Romero won, end of the day, and that's where we're at. So lastly, we have the two title fights, the main and the co-main of UFC 194. Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman. And this was the start of the event for me. This was what I was really building up to. Now, as a fan, and I'm allowed to say it, I wanted Weidman to win. I don't know why. I think it's because of the mystique and the aura after beating Anderson Silva. That, for me, was one of the greatest achievements that we've ever witnessed in the cage. That first fight where he KO'd him. And I know Anderson was clowning, but Weidman delivered, and he knocked out Anderson Silva. Somebody who, personally, to me, was invincible. After watching him over the years, and the thing that really sticks in my mind is the Stephan Bonner fight, when he was up against the cage and just like, bring it on. Allowing Bonner to swing, and then when Anderson wanted to finish him, he did. But yeah, Weidman developed this thing then, after that, just that I could not see how anybody could beat him. He would always find a way. And when he beat Machida, and when he beat Belfort, he just, he would get rocked, he would get tagged. Although the only thing, I guess, at the end of the Machida fight, Machida was coming back into it, but, Weidman had already done the damage. God, I'm stuttering. But the one thing that stuck in my mind from that, and although I say I wanted Weidman to win, the one thing that stuck in my mind was what Rockhold did to Machida. And how he just fucking handled him. And I know Rockhold lost to Belfort. And you see, when he came from Strikeforce, Rockhold, for me, it felt like if he'd have beat Belfort, he'd have had this title shot a hell of a lot sooner. I think we could all probably agree on that. But when he lost to Vitor, it set him back so far, and it was almost like all his Strikeforce work had been erased because of that. It was like he'd come from Strikeforce, and other questions were, are these Strikeforce guys as good as the UFC guys? Can they hang with the UFC? And when he came over and he lost, it sort of validated that the UFC was much stronger. But that was one mistake that he made, and since then he's been fucking impressive, finishing Bisping, finishing Machida, and he got in there. And the first round was pretty even. Weidman looked like he was, he was going to be able to sort of handle the way that Rockhold was going to try and keep the distance. Although those body kicks sounded pretty friggin' loud, they must have hurt. But yeah, it was all about that spinning fucking heel kick, weren't it? That was the downfall. I think it was pretty even up to that point. As soon as he attempted that, Rockhold took him down, took his back, ended up in the mount, and dropped some nasty, nasty ground and pound. And loads of people have been shitting on Herb Dean, saying that he should have fucking stopped the fight. And I did feel uncomfortable watching it. And, it's such a 50-50 thing. Yes, I think he should have stopped the fight. But there was always that chance that Weidman would reach the end, come back in the next round, and you never fucking know with the UFC. Weidman could have come out in round 4 and somehow managed to turn it around and win, because you just don't know. But it should have been stopped, I think. It was a bit too much, and Weidman's face at the end was a mess. It's not nice to see, and you've got to wonder what that's going to do to him mentally. I don't know. But Rockhold is the new middleweight champion, and he is for real. And he will probably end up fighting Romero next, although he wants Belfort. But I think Belfort needs at least another win, perhaps 2. I think Rockhold will get his chance against Belfort again. Perhaps. I don't know. Belfort's getting old, man. It'd be nice to see it. It'd be nice for Rockhold to get the redemption. We'll see. But we're moving on. And the main event of the evening was Mystic Mac, Conor McGregor versus Jose Aldo. And this fight has been in my head since, I don't know, was it October last year that they announced that it was going to happen after McGregor beat Seaver? Something like that. And then we had the Mendes fight, and nobody thought McGregor was going to win that because Mendes was going to take him down, which he did, but McGregor still finished him within 2 rounds. I've been following McGregor since the Cage Warriors days. Obviously, I'm a UK British guy, McGregor's Irish, but we ain't that far away. I am a big fan of Conor McGregor, and I'm not just a big fan of, his talking and all that. I'm a big fan of his style, his movement, the ability that he possesses. And I've watched his old fights and stuff and seen how much he's progressed as a person, as a character, with all the trash talk and all that. But as a fighter as well, he has progressed, and he's still developing. He's 27. He's awesome. So, the walkouts, the Sinead O'Connor music, the Foggy June, or whatever it's frigging called, I don't know, but it makes my face tingle when that music comes on. It's awesome to see him walk out, and then to see Jose come out. And I said, I was watching it with my son and my dad and my wife. We were all sitting watching this, and this was on Sunday morning. And I just said to everyone that I feel that Aldo is more concerned about himself than he is about the fight. That was sort of what was in my head. I said to my wife, he does seem nervous to me. Now I know most of us, or probably 99% of us, would feel friggin' nervous walking out there, even if we weren't going to fight. If there was that many people, thousands of people sitting looking at us, we'd feel nervous, pretty much. And this poor Brazilian guy is going out there to fight. So you can only imagine what it feels like, but I just felt like he was in his own head, thinking too much and not really concentrating on what he was doing. I don't know. But then they got in the cage, Bruce does his thing, and Aldo was looking down at the floor, which I didn't realise at the time, but he does do that normally, so it wasn't an unusual thing. But the fight started, and I was nervous as hell. I was sweating, which is not pleasant. The fight started, and it was just like instant tension. Just fucking come on, get as close to the screen as you can, watch it, volumes up, everybody's sitting there watching, waiting to see what's going to happen, because this has been hyped and hyped. Although this time round, like, the promos didn't come as fast, and we had the world tour last time, so it felt like all the fucking evidence was there. Everybody could analyse all this shit to look at and see what was being said here. All the fucking fighter predictions were calling Jose was going to win. That was the way that it was. He's got too much for McGregor. There was a few out there that were saying McGregor was going to win. I didn't want to call it either way. I just didn't. I couldn't. And it was the same for the Weidman Rockhold. I wanted somebody to win, but I honestly could not and would never have bet on either of those fights, because it was that... The 4 people involved in those 2 fights were so fucking talented that it was really difficult to pick a winner for me. Although we should have listened to Mac. To be fair, he did call the shot and he did predict what was going to happen, and 13 seconds in, it happened, and it was really weird, man. I was sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden you've got this connection, and it was like I seen Aldo diving in with the left hand, and I also seen McGregor sort of backing off and throw, and then I seen Aldo going down, and it was just like, what the fuck just happened there? Because there was a split second where I thought, shit, who's just got hit? Because when you watch it back in the replay, they both get hit. It's just that McGregor lands first. Aldo's on his way down as he lands the left. It was just weird, but McGregor was so quick to just dive on him, and them 2 hammer fists, the second one in particular, it was sort of his wrist, and that fucking smashed Aldo's nose, as you could see. And that was the end of the fight, and it was unfreaking believable, but you already know that, because you probably watched it anyway. But that was it. I was stunned, I was shocked. I never ever imagined that 13 seconds into that fight, it would be over. That was just... It's beyond the realm of any sort of premeditated thoughts regarding that fight. It was never going to end in 13 seconds. And it's the quickest ever championship win, which is interesting. Ronda was previous with 14 seconds versus Kat Zingano, was it? I think that was probably the quickest. But the EA curse, it scares me. McGregor is now going to be featured on the UFC game, EA Sports UFC 2, McGregor and Ronda. If the fucking curse strikes, I will not be happy, and I will be demanding my money back. It's going to be interesting. We've got this fight card coming up this weekend, which is Dos Anjos versus Cerrone. And for me, if Cerrone wins in the cage, I have a 99% certainty. Can you be 99% certain? I don't know. I feel Cerrone will call McGregor out, and that will be the next fight. That's my prediction. Dos Anjos might win. If Dos Anjos wins, I think McGregor will fight Edgar. I don't know when or where, but that will be the choice. If Cerrone wins, McGregor will fight Cerrone for the lightweight title. That is my prediction. I don't know how it'll go. We'll discuss that nearer the freaking time. But that is how I see it happening. Also, we've got Junior Dos Santos versus Alistair Overeem. Another massive fight. Make sure you watch them this weekend, because I will perhaps, hopefully, do another episode. Depends if this gets any views, any likes. Subscribe, do whatever you need to. Post a reply. Hit me up, message me, let me know if you'd like to take part. We can do this video chat thing to talk about previews, analysis, upcoming fights, MMA Fan Cast. Find us on Twitter.